Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hello, and thank you for watching.
For the past few weeks, Central Square has played host to public property as that we have a tragedy of the commons issue, saying happy holidays, King.
Voluntary interactions where individuals are free to act so long as they don't initiate force.
This morning, we gather to remember Sergeant Tom Ball.
Hello, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Allie Havens. With me tonight is Derrick J Freeman. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Allie.
Also joining us for this first segment is Beau Davis. Welcome to the show, Beau. Derrick, just to catch viewers up on your situation, you were recently released from jail after having served time for your victimless crime spree. Tell us what that experience was about.
Yes, thank you for asking, Allie. Over the last year, I've gone on what I'm calling a victimless crime spree, engaging in civil disobedience and committing crimes which involve no victims. And for that, I've served today 60 days in the Cheshire County House of Corrections.
Wow, that's a lot of days.
Well, that's nothing compared to the 800 that I have floating over my head for if I commit another crime in the next 2 years. So, needless to say, I won't be aiming for that goal.
Were there other people there who were there for victimless crimes as well?
Certainly. About half of the people I encountered in the Cheshire County House of Corrections, at least half of them were in there for crimes such as driving under a suspended license and possession of drugs, often harmless drugs like marijuana, or for possession of just simply a pipe. So yes, certainly there are people in there who have not made victims of anyone, but it's a pretty costly punishment at the expense of the taxpayer, of course.
And Beau, you've been working with Derrick and many others to put together a documentary about Derrick. Tell us what that's about.
Oh, well, it's about Derrick's first year in Keene, doing his civil disobedience and basically peaceful noncompliance activism. So it's highlighting all that, telling the story, and presenting a full spectrum picture of the trials he's basically gone through.
So what did you have to do to put all this together? Because I know that there's been lots of video taken already, so some of the work's been done for you, but as far as compiling all of it, was it hard to decide what to put in, what to leave out, and how did you decide all these things?
Well, since it was all pretty fresh for Derrick, he was able to put things in a chronological order, take all the archival footage and make it available for me to simply take it, and I basically cut this thing up in about a month and a half, and it was all due to the very consistent rhetoric Derrick uses, and as well as the quality footage and activism he's done. So.
You did this documentary style. How does that differ from something like a news report?
Well, it paints the whole picture. So we have basically Derrick doing voiceovers, which he recorded before he went into jail, and that kind of tells the story as far as the backstory. It kind of wraps it up, so you don't have to go and sit and watch 10 hours of activism videos. You can get the whole picture here.
Mm-hmm. So Derrick, what's next for you now that you're freer?
Well, thank you for asking. Now that I'm out of jail and able to do a lot more, I will be going on the road as what I'm calling self-imposed exile from the Shire. I'll be traveling with my video camera to meet other liberty activists and see what ways they're gaining independence, not only from the government, but for themselves. People who are raising chickens all the way up to a guy here in New Hampshire who's building his own cell phone tower. There are all different kinds of ways that people are declaring independence for themselves, and I think that's really exciting. So I'll be showcasing that as I travel across the country.
Awesome. Wow, that's some pretty interesting activism. So you're going to be doing a lot of traveling. Are you worried about coming in contact with people on the road? Like we know from Motorhome Diaries and Pete Eyre and Adamo from Cop Block and Jason Talley that they did have some issues traveling, but you also won't be in a big MARV, the Mobile Authority Resistance Vehicle, either.
That's right. I'll be traveling with what I'm calling agorist taxis, people who I pay to transport me from one place to another, though they may not be a registered taxi service, or they may not be paying taxes to the state for the services they're providing. But yes, that's what I'll be doing, and I'll be keeping my head low. So.
Right. So Beau, do you have any plans for your future you'd like to let our viewers know about?
Well, I'm basically I'd like to continue my video production and media productions with a focus on freedom and liberty, as well as the pursuit of peace. So yeah, I'd like to do more documentaries, maybe even get into the music video realm. We'll see. Music
videos, that's interesting. Would you be producing those like yourself? Would you be writing the music, or?
No, I'd like to, I've already kind of started going to different places around the area and just trying to network with bands and artists. So no, I'd like to eventually just hook up with people who have already got their music, their stuff straight, and just ready to be publicized, or, you know.
Are there a lot of local musicians in Keene?
There's quite a few, yeah. Unfortunately, the Starving Artist is closing down, so that was a big venue for bands frequently coming through Keene. So.
But maybe, this will be a good opportunity for them to still be able to put their stuff out there. And I know that we appreciate all the work you do, Beau, and you do excellent video work, so thank you for being on our show.
Thank you.
In local news tonight, the 3 men, including former Keene resident Jared Chase, who were arrested during the NATO summit, pled not guilty to terrorism charges.
The 3 men were arrested as part of an undercover operation conducted by Chicago police and federal agencies. Attorneys for the men allege that undercover police brought the bomb-making materials into the apartment that was later raided.
All this happened in the days prior to the NATO summit, amid other questionable circumstances, including a letter sent to the American Red Cross chapters in Milwaukee, informing them to prepare for a mass evacuation of Chicago during the summit.
This is the first time Illinois has charged someone under the new anti-terrorism legislation. The trial date is set for July of next year. Until then, the 3 men remain in cages, a situation that defense attorneys call unreasonable.
For our next segment, Allie has a special editorial for you.
If you've been paying any attention to the global financial crisis, you're one of the many Americans starting to wake up to the realities of what happens when a substantial supply of the world's resources are being handled by only a few elites at the top of the financial system pecking order. One of the main actors in this global crisis is the United States Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, or more simply, the Fed, is a fractional reserve central banking system which controls monetary policy. It sets reserve rates for all the banks holding its dollars, and also artificially manipulates interest rates by providing loans to the federal government. These loans, which will never be paid back, end up being used to fund the U.S. empire. And so, the relationship between the Federal Reserve and the federal government is something of a symbiotic relationship in the pursuit of war. Their fiat money system allows for the misallocation of resources, creating waste in the economy and resulting in a boom and bust business cycle. Savers are coming to realize that the value of the money in their bank accounts is being depleted by an ever-inflating supply of money in circulation. To offset these losses, people are turning to alternative forms of savings and currency. At this year's Porcupine Freedom Festival, a panel of guests discussed their own ideas and preferences for alternative currencies. While I hold my own preference for precious metals, there have been attempts by communities to create their own currencies, including local fiat systems. While I doubt another fiat currency is the answer, it is nonetheless interesting to witness individuals creating their own solutions to the Federal Reserve problem. This first video goes on to describe the fractional reserve banking system in more detail.
I'm curious to know, I think most of the people here, the reason we would be interested in using gold or silver or maybe some other alternative currencies is to take away power from the state. How is using gold or silver or some other alternative currency, some other physical alternative currency, how is that any more beneficial in taking away power from the state than it would be just to use Federal Reserve notes and then not refuse to pay any taxes with the Federal Reserve note transactions?
I can handle at least the beginning of that answer. The way the United States government introduces currency into circulation is actually a sophisticated method of inflation. It's indirect. It's not like the Weimar Germany model where they just printed and then shipped them out to the provinces. In America, you have this collusion between the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Mint and the Treasury, where they don't directly issue money out into circulation. It's sent through the cartel of the banking system, through the commercial banking system, and it's called fractional reserve banking. So, what the reason that the banks, when they first came out with this out in the 1913, they made the public believe that the banks were against it, but the banks loved this idea because originally in a free banking system, like, Rothbardian, very free banking system, if a bank wanted to be irresponsible and issue more notes than their deposit, then the depositors could bust the bank through simple rumor and go get their deposits back. Unless, of course, you did contract with the bank to leave your money in there for a certain period of time, like a certificate of deposit. They should not be allowed to overlend on their demand deposits. So the reason the banks love this system is that they're all in lockstep with each other. Sort of a honor among thieves here is that they can all inflate together, and so that there's no run on any particular bank. And if there is, they have FDIC, which is phony anyway. So they're covered, and that's why they like it. Now, the reason why using alternative currencies busts the bank is that for every dollar then that you take out, I think in the current system, what the Federal Reserve does is to impose discipline on banks. They have a reserve ratio, and I don't know what it is these days. It might even be as low as 10%. I mean, it used to be like 20%. I'm sure maybe Dan or from the D'Amico from the Mises Institute has better data than I do, but what that means is that they only have to have 10% of what they loan out on hold. So what that means is that's an amazing leverage to leverage back the other way. That means every dollar you take out of your checking or savings account, you're actually taking $10 away from their ability to loan it out. So that's a way to fight back against their power. Like we went down to Occupy Phoenix, and I tried to make this point. Like, guys, buy some silver, take your cash out of the bank, and they're like, dude, I only got my debit card on me. And I'm like, man, instead of asking for more liters, just go to the bank and take your cash out and buy silver. So that's the way that these alternative currencies create a political thing. I like them for economics, but it's a political thing too. You want to add? Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing, if you're not demanding, like if you're not contributing to the demand for dollars, like you don't use a dollar, okay, it's still going to exist. But if fewer people want them, that makes them worth less. And if you want silver instead, the supply of silver doesn't change just because you want it, but the demand goes up, and that makes the value of silver go up. So if you really want to hit them where it hurts, don't use the dollars, and then the demand will be lower and they won't be worth as much.
Interesting. I really liked Ross Edwards, his analysis. He called the fractional reserve banking system honor among thieves, as far as the way the bank's attitude about it was, and that even now when you go to a bank, any bank, they're all going to be FDIC insured, which means that if there's a bank run, then the federal government's there to be the lender of the last resort, or the Federal Reserve is there to be the lender of the last resort. I mean, so
right.
So they all sort of work together in the same system.
And it's interesting, he brought up the FDIC. I think one interesting fact that got left out is the greater danger under the current system is not that the banks crash due to people pulling their money out, but that people take their money out and it's not worth anything.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like hyperinflation, like you saw in Germany with wheelbarrows of money being burned for warmth. I don't think it's going to be that drastic in the United States. I don't know, but that's definitely, there's potential for that when you have a central bank.
Well, I also agreed with Ross's assessment to the occupiers. If they really want to change things or see power change hands, rather than asking for a new leader or another leader, perhaps they should take power into their own hands by taking their cash out of the banks and buying something physical like silver.
Right. I think that there is like an amount of individual power that comes with having precious metals. Just that, it's something that you own, you can protect yourself, you're not, you could, maybe one day in the future give your precious metals to a bank to protect, but it's kind of nice to be able to have your own physical wealth on you, on your person.
Now, speaking of wealth, this next video covers the ideas of value, whether intrinsic or subjective. We also see how value can be artificially set at a higher rate than normal. Take a look.
That's why we're starting to realize, okay, it's either naturally occurring gold or silver or something like that. I'd like to maybe, if we have time, talk about the theory of like the hours thing, because I know at least ever since like the Tea Party thing blew up like in 07, 08, there have been a lot of people, even coming from the same background as me, like fans of Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged and objectivism, where mistakenly they're jumping onto the precious metals movement, which is fantastic, but then they say, this has intrinsic value. And it's like, yes, I appreciate your spirit, I appreciate the sentiment, but you're making an economic mistake. Nothing has intrinsic value. And I know that, yeah, because the word value is from every individual human being's ranking of preferences, value preferences. You have some objectivists, they're like, they hate the word subjective, but as it may be, the subjective value theory of economics, the subjective value school, is actually the most John Galt theory of economics, okay? So let's not freak out over the word subjective. So anyway, I want to get away from the word intrinsic value is what I'm saying. Because that was a mistake made by like Adam Smith, I think. And even, he even might have gotten that from like Marx or something, or it was about the same time. And you would think Adam Smith and Marx sharing the same perspective, well, they made the same mistake with thinking that things have intrinsic value. And I can take it apart with a simple metaphor of if you're in the desert and you're presented, you're starving and dehydrated, and you're presented with a ruby or a glass of water, you value that glass of water more. Now, a Marxist or an intrinsic value person would say, well, that diamond took so many hours to grind down, and that water, you could just go scoop it up out of the pond. So the diamond's got to be worth more to the man. Well, it doesn't matter what you tell the guy it's worth. Listen to him. He'll tell you what it's worth. And that's what our project has been about, we really do want to sell these cards for $5 a piece or $6 a piece, but we're not going to centrally plan that. And all we do is we try and be transparent. And we tell you what it's worth, and that's what the app was all about. But we do notice that they trade for more than the melt value. I saw Peter Schiff in Phoenix, and I made him some special dime cards from his father's cartoon book. And Peter goes, how much do these circulate for? And I said, oh, at the time, like $3.50, $4. And he, Peter knows. He's like, there's only $2 of silver in there. I'm like, yeah, melt value, but they're not just getting it for the coin. It's a package. There's other utility to it. And so, and Peter said, oh, I said, I'm not going to tell you what it's worth it to you. And he said, you're right, yeah.
Hey, how's it going? So I have a semantic disagreement with Ross. The way I like to see it, gold and silver have a subjective intrinsic value. So what I mean by that is that unlike FRNs, the value, somebody values it as a first order good, meaning they will use it for itself rather than for its ability to be traded for something else, right? And I think that's important when you start comparing it to like Bitcoin, because there's an economic question there with Bitcoin. There's nothing you use it for other than trading, just like FRNs, unless you like to, burn it or whatever, for paper, for heat. So
you said, okay, just right when you just said Bitcoin has no inherent value, right? Yeah.
That's my claim so far. I haven't been convinced otherwise.
I'm by no means an expert on Bitcoin, but the way I've approached it from my school of thought, from the Austrian school, is that a money derives its utility from the eye of the beholder, and I cannot speak to whomever is using Bitcoin for whatever purposes they are. That's why I listed it in this umbrella category of alternative currency, because there's no inherent intrinsic value to it, of course, but there's a use to it. It's a settlement mechanism. And in the same way that I would only get into as much gold and silver as I have to, like I don't lust for gold and silver. it's something, it's a necessity at this point. I really would rather be investing in productive ventures. Yeah. And Warren Buffett has a point, although I really don't like the guy. He said, gold's not a productive investment. You dig it up out of the ground, then you pay someone to put it back in the ground and hold on to it. Well, yeah, he's got a point. And then he said, civilized people don't own gold. To which someone from my favorite site, might have been Doug Casey or something, he said, well, sure, but we're not living in civilized times. So, I mean, I really would rather not be hoarding gold and silver, but at this point, it's a defense tool. And so, the point being that I'd rather own things that produce value. And I think I'm not a professional investor either, but there is a difference between speculating and investing. I think in the broad vernacular, I think investing is too widely applied to when people make financial decisions. I think people might be a little bit more honest with themselves in that they are speculating in sometimes and they are investing sometimes. And I think the general designation occurs when an investment is something where you pretty much retain the principal and it provides a flow of income. And speculation is simply you buy something, hold on to it, and wait for it to improve. So you'd be speculating in that, that hayfield across the street, hoping that, the town would expand out here. That would be a speculative investment, and gold and silver is a speculation because you put it in the drawer, it's not producing. Whereas an investment would be if I bought a mining company.
Practical application of the dime cards I saw immediately. You're buying silver at or below spot, and it's minted by the U.S. government, and I'm going, I don't have to pay a mint price. AOCS, we would have gone through with a lot more of that, but I'm paying way over spot for it. So immediately, it has value at whatever the melt price is. Now, the reason the Freedom's Phoenix dime cards are worth $4 over at George's over here is because I'll buy them back at $4. I set the price. I learned that from you, the alchemist last year. You know what the price is, what I'll pay for it. Now, the thing is that these dime cards have much more value because the silver calculator. My generation, when I was your average age here, young in the early 90s, what we were waiting for, we did not have the technology to do a point of sale. We know exactly what this coin is worth. What is this coin worth? .info. We know exactly what it is worth right now. Now, the thing is, some of these designs that Ross has done are fantastic designs. You go look at the money lith over there, and you'll see, I want that one and that one. Guess what? Some of those are going to have more value to you than others. Some people are going to be paying more for them than others. That's a subjective thing just based on the artwork. But the Freedom's Phoenix ones are worth $4 because that's what I'm going to pay for them. The thing is that we put these in the circulation not just as a way of bartering, but to understand that this is how we're going to be bartering. In the future, dollars aren't going to mean squat. All of a sudden, you're going to learn what silver does. It's going to keep you fed. That's what it's going to do. So the thing is that we have a dozen eggs that we sell for one silver dime. Activists know at my home, you come where you want a dozen eggs, it's a dime. Fork it over. Oh, let me check the year, okay? Now, the thing is that I can see the future in this. And the arguments that we're having over here at different alternative currencies are good, and we need to understand this. But I'll tell you what the future is. The future is not being forced to take something at a subjective value of somebody else. You determine what it is.
For this final video, we give you a look at how someone has created a new fiat currency.
In this case, the currency is called ours, but it is backed by nothing more than the promise that, should you desire, someone will exchange it for gold, silver, or dollars.
And the results.
Well, in Summit County, our experiment has been like this. I bought a refinery. I bought all the rock crushers, the crucibles, the ovens to melt down ore into silver, stamp them out into coins. We have all the millions of dollars. How many of you guys have a refinery or a mint? Not very many of us. So if we went from Federal Reserve notes straight to a gold-backed or silver-backed or copper-backed commodity money, the same bastards that run the Federal Reserve would then start lending gold and silver into the economy at interest. And so then we become debt slaves with that currency as well. The idea is to get away from usury and interest, because currently there is more debt than there is currency, okay? And so it's a Ponzi scheme. It guarantees bankruptcies and foreclosures because it's like musical chairs. There's 12 people going after 10 chairs. Now, what do all the people have the same amount of on planet Earth? Everybody's got the same 24 hours in the day. The billionaire has 24 hours in a day, and the homeless guy looking for work has 24 hours in a day. It's the only thing all of us have the same amount of. So instead of top-down, trickle-down money like we currently have, which the parasites spend into the economy and charge interest on, the people, we monetize what the people have, which is time. We own ourselves, we own our time. Time is property, it's a commodity, and it's inflation-proof. Back in the day, time used to be $1 an hour, then it's $3 an hour, $5 an hour. Currently, minimum wage, I believe, is like $7 an hour, okay? So time is inflation-proof, and it's an actual physical commodity, just like gold and silver and whiskey and beer and marijuana and whatever currency you want to use. Now, in Summit County, we've been able to monetize time. I can go and spend it at all the restaurants. I can spend the time at the brewery and the distillery and with the massage therapist and the lawyer and the doctor and the butcher and the grocery store. And I am currently able to trade our currency that we create ourselves. The producers spend it into the economy interest-free instead of the parasites. And now we can live without using Federal Reserve notes. Our money never leaves the community, and it creates more transactions. When the Great Depression was going down, we had 3,000 currencies because there's all these people lining up for work, and they got all this time, but there's no money circulating to pay them. So they created alternative currencies. So our hours system is backed by gold and silver. You can come in and say, here's some hours, I want some gold and silver, and I'll give you gold and silver for your currency that you have. The idea is time is money. So I'll let you guys talk.
Interesting, Ali. I like how he said that a billionaire has 24 hours in a day and a homeless person also has 24 hours in a day. So it seems like it's more fair to use this currency.
Right.
I have to wonder, though, is a lawyer or a doctor's hour the same value to you as a homeless person's hour who may not be doing much but sweeping your floor or
Right,
something?
it would depend on the job. So if I wanted a dentist to look at my teeth, then I would pay him much more than I'd pay the homeless man to look at my teeth, since that's what he does for work. But, you know, if it's mowing my lawn, I guess it maybe wouldn't matter. But yeah, there's different types of work which people value at different levels. So I see the time thing as more of a control by which to measure different variables. You know, like a lot of times in graphs, like time is one of the controls, but they don't. But time isn't in and of itself something that I would consider just valuable 1 hour. There's so many different variables that go into it.
Here, here.
Our producer James Schlesinger is planning on leaving the show to move to other projects and places. There will be more information about this in the next episode.
If you have any interest in being a part of the show and perhaps producing it yourself, send us an email at tv@freekeen.com. I'm Derrick J Freeman.
And I'm Allie Havens.